Hello, everyone. I'm Casey Loftman, Editor-in-Chief of Food Engineering Magazine. Joining me today are Amy Shipley, Adam Max, and Joe Kelly from SRG. SRG has a lot of research going on right now on how the ongoing coronavirus pandemic is affecting not only consumer demand, but the supply side as well. And we're going to discuss a few of those topics today. So, Amy, I'd like to start out with you. SRG just recently has put out some research that you've had in the field about how consumers are reacting to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Can you give us an overview of what trends you're seeing?
Yeah, it certainly can, Casey. Thanks for having us. And I hope all your listeners are safe and sound at home and taking good care of themselves. The research was really kicked off about 3 weeks ago. It's consumer research amongst 200 consumers nationwide. And we did it just to start to see what consumers were thinking, what they were feeling in relation to retail, in relation to food service, in regarding to their behavior, their emotions, et cetera. And I'll report to you, and I'm going to have to flip this to Adam here in just a minute. It's been very interesting to see how consumer behavior has evolved from when this whole thing launched and we started the survey March 11th to where we are today. And Adam, do you want to mention some key trends as it's evolved from fear, right, and confusion to where we are today, especially with the economy?
Absolutely. Thanks, Amy, and thanks for having us, Casey. Yeah, this has been really fascinating. As Amy mentioned, March 11th, that morning is the day we fielded this, and that our first wave, our benchmark wave, and we've done it every Wednesday since. And if you remember that day, that was the evening where travel bans started taking place, NCAA, March Madness was canceled, NBA, and so on. And so we have that marker, and as we've seen every week, such a change. We've really seen this shift go from a survival mindset and this period of true uncertainty. And the initial reports in our first and second waves were concern for others and let me stock up, let me sort of be prepared and for whatever's going to come. And then in this last wave, which we just fielded last week, we really saw, the concern spiking even higher. So concern is still increasing, but these feelings of lack of control and stress are really beginning to impart on consumers. And what's leading to what's coming out of that are just some really interesting, first of all, grocery behaviors, where we're seeing the center store, where for so many years leading up to this, was an area of the grocery store which was really struggling and maybe in decline, or even in decline, has now been the savior area for consumers as they stock up on all those center store categories. What we're starting to also see is as consumers are having their materials stocked up, they're also starting to look more and more at restaurants. They're concerned about the survival of their local restaurants, but also they're looking for foods they crave, foods that they want to create at their home or bring into their home from restaurants. So we're seeing some really interesting support for local restaurants, as well as really wanting to contribute to that local community.
And that's an interesting point that you make there about restaurants, Adam, because, initially when things started getting shut down, especially in states that were very aggressive very early on, it was a question of, are a lot of these local businesses going to be able to survive? But anecdotally speaking, I can say that my experience lines up with what you've seen here, in that the local restaurants where I live, they're extremely busy with takeout and delivery and things like that. We picked up pizza Friday night from our favorite local pizza shop, and I was standing about 8 feet away from the owner, and we were talking. I said, "How's it going?" And she said, "It's the phone's been ringing off the hook. It's been incredibly busy." So, do you feel like this is maybe people looking for a little bit of that normalcy, a little bit of that routine, to be able to say, "All right, we can still go get pizza from our favorite place. We can still get carry out," that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll chime in and welcome my colleagues to add on. I think it's absolutely part of the coping that we're all trying to go through. As you said very well, a bit of normalcy, to be able to bring in some of your favorite flavors or your favorite dishes, into your home is a part, when we're spending so much time inside in close quarters. And we're seeing some really amazing spikes in some of those behaviors, like eating dinner together as a family, playing games as a family, spending time, taking walks and so on. I do think restaurants are playing such a critical functional and emotional role in what we're all wrestling with.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Adam. I think, and Casey, I appreciate so many restaurants are getting creative. I mean, in tough times like this, you'll see a lot of creativity emerge, which is the exciting part of all this. I think pizza, Chinese, those restaurants, QSR that are set up for drive-through or set up for delivery are doing okay. It's all the rest that we're so concerned about. I think that as we emerge from this, people are going to start trading down, not spending as much at some of those fine dining or polished casual type restaurants. They're trying to figure out delivery to give you that similar experience away from home, which is challenging for these guys. Before all of this, we all knew that there were too many restaurants in the country. And we just had too many choices. We don't have that big a share of stomach, right? We couldn't support them all. And I certainly didn't think that the thinning of the herd would happen this way. But you're going to see, I think, people get really clever. I'm seeing a lot of delivery companies, first of all, on the franchisee side, giving franchisees a break. So they're getting a break. I know one of our clients, Freddy's, there's no payments due for franchisees. You're seeing legislation step in. Thomas Keller is now suing his insurance company, which many restaurants are starting to jump in and say, hey, you're not supporting me when I need support. But they're also being really clever. They're packaging wine deals. You're seeing makeshift bars set up outside of restaurants so you can sit and have a cocktail while you're waiting to pick something up. In terms of delivery, they're putting special surprises in your delivery orders, like extra desserts or beverages, and what they call black glove service is happening a lot around the country, which is really interesting. So they're definitely trying to position it and kind of reinvent themselves literally overnight. And what I actually celebrate is all the creativity and just trying stuff, just getting out there and doing a test and learn and say, well, let's see if this works. And I think a lot of us really appreciate that. And we're getting bored as consumers. We're trying to order takeout every other day and cook. I'm tired of doing dishes, frankly. It's a lot of dishes that I'm not used to. But I think we're trying to support the industry and be clever in different ways, and also keep at home, our kids interested, and keep the variety going, because we're not, Americans love variety and they crave what they crave.
Okay. And Joe, I'd like to start with you on this next one. We touched a little bit on that idea that people are flocking more to the center of the grocery store. What's driving that? Is it looking for more of like the comfort food type of things, snacks and cookies and things like that? Or is it more stocking up on things like canned vegetables and stuff with a longer shelf life?
So I think the data would suggest that food security is the biggest driver. We have seen some data out there that would show that the biggest spikes have actually been in canned vegetables versus rise in indulgent foods. I think the rise of indulgent foods like cookies, that might be a secondary or tertiary driver. But I think that might be actually one of the reasons that we see people going to food service is because they're not going to food service out of necessity. They're not saying I'm going to food service because I don't have the ingredients or I don't have the capability to cook. I think it is, in addition to supporting local businesses, that's kind of currently where they're going to really get those really comforting and delicious flavors that they've gotten used to and that they love.
I'll just add, I think that's going to be one of the, as Joe mentioned, that's part of our weekly survey that we're fielding. We do have a specific question in there about indulgent foods in the grocery. And so we're watching that, Casey, because we, I think, again, as we see this situation and this reality go on and on, we do anticipate that we might see a spike in those comfort foods. It'll be interesting to also see where healthy foods, we sort of believe we might see growth on those poles, whereas Joe mentioned the initial run out there was survival and stock up. Let me make sure I have the basics that I need.
We're seeing potatoes too. I know we handle Potatoes USA, and from the commodity perspective, sales are skyrocketing for potatoes in the produce section. Those products that are more perishable are having a tougher time. If you're told to go to the store once a week or twice a week at most, But we're doing a run on potatoes, which is really interesting. They also, on the food service side, doing a lot there, because anything that holds well and can deliver well or be reheated, or in addition to being a comforting food, we're seeing a surge in sales.
Right, and I'd like to talk a little bit now about how that surge is affecting the supply side. You know, we've all seen the photos, the video, or the personal experiences of going to the grocery store and, you know, empty shelves, you know, especially in the toilet paper aisle, things like that. But from a food supply side, in my conversations with processors, the big thing that they're trying to figure out right now is, how do we meet this sustained nationwide surge in demand, which is so different from anything they've had to deal with before. Here in suburban Chicago, if there's a snowstorm on the way, you know, you'll have a run on things like milk and bread and eggs. In the Southeast, if there's a hurricane on the way, you'll have a run on drinking water and canned vegetables, things that'll last a long time. But this sustained nationwide surge for everything is really a different challenge. So what are you seeing from the supply side of how processors are being able to handle some of those challenges?
You know, I think, and you failed to mention alcohol, Casey. I think that's part of the mix as well. How can they keep up? That's because we're seeing a lot of sales increase there. Yeah, I think that's been really the focus. And I think the bigger story here is around sustainability, you know, and how are we going to feed the world? We talk a lot about that in editorial and amongst ourselves as food and beverage professionals, but now it's real. And what are different alternative sustainable sources so we can expand our offerings, you know, at food service. We're doing a lot of work in cellular aquaculture now, and cellular work, and, you know, people are like, "Ooh, scary, what is this?" And it's so new. And I think those type of industries are also going to get a swift kick in the pants in terms of people saying, well, maybe we should really think about this, and maybe we should try these kind of new areas. So that's kind of interesting in terms of what's happening in terms of new food products coming down the pike. But I think everyone's trying to do the best job they can. They're also trying to make sure they're diverting their resources to the right places. I know out here in Colorado, we're seeing, at least at the retail level, things stabilize in terms of supplies. I think the government has done a pretty good job trying to calm everybody down in a certain sense, to say, just, you know, you only need one pack of toilet paper, you only need this. And now that we're seeing things restocked, and Adam, you could play this out, and Joe and the research, people are calming down. Yes, I am seeing stuff back on the shelf, which is interesting. But I think sustainability is this is going to be an interesting conversation moving forward, because people are asking themselves, is this the first of many of these type of things that are going to happen? Adam, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, well, the other thing I was going to add, I guess, what's on my mind here is, you know, as this virus has come out, we've talked about, and we've been looking and seeing people react to the health and medical realities, to the social realities, and we can't deny the economic realities. And I think, at least in our research that we've seen so far, you know, those first 2 weeks, we were seeing some really interesting statistics based on price sensitivity. That the number of people that are shopping based on price really dropped. And so we saw, again, because there was a survivalist mentality. I think that, as Amy said, I think that as people take a breath and start getting used to this reality, and unfortunately, when you look at the reality of the economic situation in our country, and as that starts impacting households and their budgets, I think that, you know, when you think about supply and sustainability, I don't think that we're going to be able to sustain that type of behavior with the economic realities that are going to face every single household in this country. Even with a stimulus package, there are just going to be really, I think, concerns for future. You know, what are the economics of this whole situation?
And Adam, you're talking earlier about Amazon, Kroger, you know, the possibility of fewer retailers in the future. And then, you know, looking at Amazon, which we all know, who are all making a lot of interesting chess moves right now to help us with delivery. I think they have a big plan in place. And I think, again, that's another area that's going to be really interesting as we move to the future, is fewer types of retailers across the country. Those mass guys probably doing pretty well, and Amazon coming in on the delivery side. Their grocery business is doing pretty well, but boy, is it exploding now.
You're right. I mean, and actually, maybe I'll pass it to Joe. Joe, do you want to reflect on that online grocery statistic and what we've seen in that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've seen online grocery just continue to grow throughout the weeks. So just to pull a stat, when we first fielded the survey, I think it was about less than 10% of people were saying, hey, I'm using online grocery shopping. Over the course of several weeks, it's up to 27%. So it's nearly tripled in the past several weeks. So seeing very consistent and pretty substantial movement in the usage of online grocery shopping.
So Casey, what do you think about that editorially? I mean, do we see processors leaning into e-commerce more heavily in the future, and going direct, or working with some alternative partners versus traditional retail or traditional even distributors and food service?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is something that processors have had on their radar for a long time because there has been this rise, as you mentioned, the Amazon effect, stores like Walmart offering online grocery pickup, things like that. So that's not necessarily a new thing, but as we've talked about with a lot of different things here, it's going to be really interesting to see how the pace of that shifts, because I think we are going to start seeing a lot of companies examining a few things. First of all, as you mentioned, supply chains, supply lines. Are you relying too much on things coming in from overseas? Do you need to have backup sourcing for that? And then it's also going to change how they put things out the door and ship them and sell them to consumers directly, as opposed to just distribution centers or things like that. My guess would be that would not be a snap of the fingers type of change where suddenly someone is selling raw chicken directly to consumers. I don't see that happening anytime soon. But a lot of the packaged things, there's no reason why they couldn't start selling some of those things directly, or selling them directly through Amazon, as we've already started to see in some cases. So this is going to be a really stressful time for everyone and a really strange time to get through. But I think we are going to see some pretty drastic shifts in how everybody's doing business, both on the supply side for ingredients coming in, things like that, and the production side, how they're shipping things out, who they're selling to, how they're selling, and those sorts of things.
Great. Agree. We're seeing a lot of companies now, the supply chain, again, be less reliant on foreign markets and figuring that out immediately. And then I think we're going to see a lot of campaigns and labeling towards U.S. or more locally sourced ingredients, and whatever people's definition of local is up for grabs. But the U.S. grown, we're seeing that with garlic, for example, right now with one of our clients, really focused on U.S. garlic ingredients to try to, again, we always talk about having a vertical supply chain, but with this particular company, but it's now become even more important. So we're definitely seeing those trends.
Right, and the flip side of that is that I know everyone wants to have a more sustainable, more local supply chain, but you also don't want to be putting too many eggs in one basket, because then you run the risk of some sort of localized disaster like a tornado or something knocking out your entire supply chain. So it's really a delicate balancing act for a lot of these processors.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Agree.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all the time that we have for today. So I'd like to say thank you to Amy Shipley, Adam Max, and Joe Kelly from SRG for sharing some of their research insights. They have been doing this research for a few weeks now and will continue to do so, and are producing some great material. And we hope that everyone has gained some insights today. Thank you for joining us.